Hello, good morning, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. You are listening to Damn Radio. Coming to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. Listen live anytime at damnradio.com/live or go pick up all these hilarious moments in the privacy of your own home. And you can do that at internationalflavor.com or for all the radio content of all the interesting podcasters that we have on this station, you can go to damnradio.com/schedule and find them, or podcast and listen to past episodes. All good stuff. Wasn't here yesterday. Apologies. Had medical issues I wanted to take care of, resolve. Seems like a bit of an echo in here. Not sure why, but maybe it's because I was gone a day. I did cry on the way to the doctor's visit. Wonder if it was over the radio show, or if it was just life's troubles catching up with me and the fact that I missed a show. Let's all take a moment of silence about the missed show. No, let's not. Let's skip. Okay, so over the weekend. So the war has changed in Russia, Ukraine. Okay, here I go about the war again. But it's changed, and it is somewhat dramatic change, okay? So you can start with the fact that the Azov Sea is no longer basically usable. The Ukrainians destroyed or severely damaged probably 100-plus ships. And these are grain ships. These are also their oil tankers. They're cargo container tankers. They were destroying shipping. They bombed the ports. All those cranes that load all the stuff that are not easy to replace, they were doing that in the major shipping areas as well. So Russia responded, did the exact same thing. We've talked a little bit about that, but Russia's gone further, and Russia is destroying logistics all over Russia. Now, Ukraine is destroying plants, and frankly, I don't think Russia's done a good enough job. You wonder if so. I watched a report that says our Patriot systems are basically shit. That the Patriot is not the answer and never has been. And there was a guy that said, who was deeply involved in it. He's a missile scientist from MIT. And I watched his entire, I was so interested. I watched the whole thing, and he testified in Congress. He said that generals testified in Congress that during the Iraq War, trying to take out Scuds, the rate of accuracy in taking them out was less than 10%. He said in many cases it was 4%. And then the crazy part was that when the Congress was talking to the general, that the general actually said intercept means their paths crossed in the air, meaning the missile was coming in and the Patriot went past it, but might not have hit it. So the intersection is the fact that there are two ray lines out in the world. They're really not a ray because a ray is straight. Sorry about that. Two arc lines out, and these arc lines are at some point cross each other or cross near each other. They intersect. And so he said that also he showed the video. And the interesting part to me was the video that the Patriot, even if it does hit a missile, it can and it does. They call it successful when they hit it, but if it doesn't hit the warhead part of the missile, the warhead still goes off. And in most of the ones that hit, he said, the ones that hit go to, they hit the back of the missile. They don't catch the front of the missile. It has to be the front of the missile or you're screwed. It doesn't matter if you hit it from behind. So the Patriot is not the answer according to this guy. And he said they have whatever, I think they're called Pack 1 and Pack 2 that people have been debating, but it might be some other short nomenclature 1 and 2 because I don't remember off the top of my head. But he said that those were the second one, the missile that the Russians are making, that we're actually, and he showed a video of a plane, that the plane is an Iranian plane, and the Iranians have the advanced missiles, missile defense that the Russians have given them. And this Iranian plane was escorting a presidential plane somewhere, and they said it was they had a show of force, and there were these Russian things, and using which I forget which MiG version it was, doesn't matter, but it was one of the more modern MiG versions too, and so it was a pretty interesting video, all in all, about how it's going on the front. And so the fact is that we personally, as Americans, we also need to be worried about our own missile defense. There's no doubt that the Israeli missile defense, they got the Iron Dome. Yeah, it's a great name you get to hear all along. But that thing failed miserably. And the data from that is not good. And, but nobody's talking about it because they don't want you talking about it. And so they do not talk about it at all. They don't want you to know that the Patriot really isn't what they claim it is. But it is the best that they have. Now, the Russians have the SS-400 and the other stuff that for their missile capabilities, and those are pretty accurate. But the war is changing to a drone war. That part is no doubt. Okay, and the war has changed. It is the global point of that. And but over the weekend, on the 18th, the attack of the Ukrainians, they attacked basically an Amazon plant. Okay, in Russia, I've told you about this before. I know I have. There's a shipping, receiving company where they do the same things that we do. They buy things online, and the biggest supplier of all things in Russia is a company called Wildberries. And you see Wildberries everywhere, and they have Wildberries on their phone. I downloaded the app when I was in Russia just to check it out, because you can do it anywhere, and you can download it and it arrives. The difference is Russians actually get out of their houses. We don't. We don't go anywhere. They walk a lot of places. There's always people walking somewhere, and here in America, that's a rarity. We get out, we get in our car, we drive to the store. They don't. They get out, they walk to the store, and they walk and they pick up fresh veggies, and they do it basically every day, right? So you go down. If you're going to make a salad, you don't buy it 2 days in advance. You buy it on the day, and there's a lot of, outside of markets and stuff, there's a lot of the farmers and the people will bring in their own goods, and you can buy them on the street. I mean, I personally like it. It's kind of like our farmers market. There's one down here that's not too far away that I like to wander into, and see if there's any fresh veggies. I like doing that. Well, Russians do that all the time. And on their way to the market or on their way to buy, I don't know, whatever. They don't buy things in large quantities like we do. It's just not regular. They don't do it. You don't see people do that. They'll walk out with a mini sack, but they do it every day. So it's a different thought process. And they get out and they see people and they chat and they do stuff like that. And it's always now. I got to admit, most of that has been in larger cities is where I've been, and that in larger cities here in America, I'm sure is more prevalent as well that they do it. But I like that way of life. I've often thought about living in a small in a medium-sized small city or a large one. Moscow I particularly like, and everything's available in Moscow, and they have a great subway system, and very clean, very safe, and it's they should take great pride in Moscow. And I'm going to go to St. Petersburg this year, and I hear similar items. But even the smaller cities are generally clean, safe. Anyway, Wildberries is everywhere. So they'll have a little store somewhere, and the store will be, here's a Wildberries drop-off point, and they bring, like, instead of Amazon going out to everybody's houses, they go to the local place. and they drop it off in a local point. And at the local point, people come and they pick it up instead of coming to their apartment, wandering up the stairs. You know, they're very protective over there, and their ways into the apartments are severely blocked off. And I assume that's everywhere in these. And then, you don't just get to wander around in other people's apartments. Anyway, Wildberries, the Ukrainians attacked. And so the event is a coordinated Ukrainian drone attack on two major Wildberries logistics centers on Saturday, July the 18th. And that's in Katovsk and Tambov, about 360 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And then Elektrostal is the second one, and that's about 50 miles east of Moscow. So these two warehouses are ordinary, large-scale retail distribution centers belonging to Russia's largest online marketplace. On the evidence, so far available, Ukraine says they had a military logistics function. I call BS on that. They do not have a military logistics function, and that is personal. I mean, they're shipping clothes. You go by, if you buy a stroller, you don't go down the street and go to the local Walmart and buy a stroller. You buy it online. It's delivered to Wildberries, and you go pick it up. They don't, pots and pans, same thing. The larger items you buy, you're not going to the store to buy that stuff. You buy it online, just like we do here. And so it's like assume that they are the equivalent of Amazon, because they are. And then assume how much Amazon is using as a distribution point for the military. How would that be? If there was a war going on here in the United States, would it be, would Amazon switch to military function and ship stuff around? I don't think so. Not to the level that they're trying to claim. Is there something that maybe some part somewhere, so you blow up a plant, kill how many people? They killed like 8 in the plant, because the plant's 24/7. And so it needs to be, they say they had these military logistics functions, but nobody anywhere has provided any independent documentation that it's even remotely accurate, okay? That they were predominantly for military purposes or military installations. And so that, is crap. But the Ukrainians are, forever lying anyway. So about what they hit. And they want, the difference is they don't want the Russian military to suffer. They want the Russian people to suffer. They are still on the only way we win this war is kill Putin politically or physically. That is the only way they win the war, is kill him politically. And that's what they're trying to do, because there are big elections this fall in Russia as well. And they want all the Politburo and all, well, it's not the Politburo anymore, but all of the House, all of the legislative side, they want them to be not supportive of Putin in the war. They are right now, and they want to try to change that. And so they change that by making the people suffer. So they're blowing up anything. They're far more civilian targets than military. And President Zelensky gets up, the old green goblin, stands up and defends the attack on these warehouses and says they supported Russia's military supply chain by distributing sanctioned electronic components used in drones and navigation systems, and they portrayed it as retaliation. It's not retaliation. They always fire first for Ukrainian attacks on Ukraine's postal, commercial, and civilian infrastructure. So does the presence of these available electronics somewhere inside a nationwide marketing warehouse make the entire warehouse and hundreds of civilian employees a lawful military target? A Wildberries warehouse. Think of an Amazon warehouse. You can find them here everywhere. A Wildberries warehouse has merchandise that belongs to thousands of independent sellers. Everybody sells through there. You make clothes somewhere, You sell them through Amazon or through Wildberries. You make toys, cosmetics, appliances, tools, electronics, strollers, consumer equipment. Even assuming that they buy dryers and freaking washers that way that they go and pick up, and it's a hell of a system. And if there's any military, the percentage is tiny compared to everything else that's going on. So blowing up 2 logistics plants for civilians sure as hell ain't military objective. It's to make the civilians suffer. And so, I want to say this because this is the thinking process of the Ukrainians, and they are brutal. I have something to share with you if the transcript is finished for me. Let me have a look here and see, because it may be close. Yeah, I have the Russian version if I can find it. So during my break, I'll take it and I'll tell you about how Ukrainians think, because this, in the Russian part, I mean, this is friggin' brutal. And this guy was on TV, but this is how they think, okay? I've met a bunch of these type of people, and they... Oh my God, I swallowed wrong. Anyway, they're scary people, and I wanted to give you a bit of an example, okay? Because let's start with this. I don't watch scary movies. I don't like them. I don't like to see the sight of blood. I don't like to watch things. But 90% of the time, I can watch it because these like monster movies, alien movies, It by Stephen King, whatever. Any of those things. The scary part, I don't like being scared. I don't like that kind of thing. I don't like the anticipation and the tenseness. I just don't get it. But then again, when it finally happens, it'll be a scary, I jumped thing. But mentally, for me, that isn't really scary because that crap is not real. Now, suppose aliens show up at your house one day, then we got a problem, But I'm scared of real things. What are my fears? I hate snakes. I don't want to be near a snake. I don't want to be eaten by a shark. I don't. Alligators. That day I went to the wonderful open park in Florida. I forget what it's called, but I went by myself. And so I had been there on the weekends, and I happened to be driving by, and it only cost $5, and I went in, but it was the middle of the day. Or it might be $7. I don't know, whatever veteran discount I got. And then, but you go in, and nobody was there. And I went to the same place I went where there were, maybe 50 people the last time, because that had the most alligators. Okay. And I walked down the thing under this little bridge overhang, and there's nobody there but me. There's my truck parked up on top, and I walk down, and I'm looking off to the side, and under this bridge, all you see are about 9 heads. Just the eyeball part poked up over the thing, and there's a couple of huge ones on the bank, and I am down there with them, and I'm like, you know what? This is not the place to be. Now, that's scary, okay? And I know it's a long, stupid Sam story, but that is frightening to me. That'd be like swimming 10 feet from a shark, and going, hey, please, my leg's not dinner, something like that. And so I backed away slowly, turned and ran my ass out of there as fast as I can get out of there. It's like, man, why did you come here alone, you moron? And or why didn't you just stay up and watch them from the bridge, from the safe point? I was like, holy crap, I'm going to get chewed up. And anyway, those things frighten me. Real things frighten me. And people who think like these Ukrainians think frighten me. They will kill and not think twice about it. And they are brutal in what they say and what they do. And if it happens to kill a couple hundred factory workers in a Wildberries plant, yeah, well, that was a necessary thing to kill those people. And they kind of glorify it. You know what I mean? They think these type of attacks are legitimate, justified, everything about it. And, what are you questioning us for? Don't question us. People are pressuring them to quit attacking the civilian-style infrastructure. all over the place, except America, because we don't even know about it. And so they're doing these things, and it is truly, truly frightening to me that people like this exist in the world. They will kill people and not think twice about it. The kill list, the Mirotvorets list, is real. You can get on there and check that out, and people get paid to kill other people, and they do it publicly. The story of the, I hope it's done. Let me see if it's finished, because I had it translated to English. It's not done. We could start with the Russian part about what they did, but I didn't have time to translate it on my own. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play song number 1 for you, and get my on that particular topic, get my thoughts organized, because I can do it, and I can do it pretty quickly. But I need the words of this guy to share with you specifically what a pig this guy was. And Ukrainian guy interviewed in Poland, and he's harsh, and they all are. You know, I've met people like this. I met so many Ukrainians when I lived in in Florida. Well, I still have a place down there, but the Russian Ukrainian community, people aren't allowed to speak Russian, first of all, or people get upset. There's Ukrainian churches everywhere, Ukrainians. Everybody's suddenly a Ukrainian, right? None of them are Russian, because but they don't speak Ukrainian. It's pretty funny. And but anyway, and if you go in and speak Russian to them, they get upset. Anyway, and they're friggin' brutal. And there's, damn it, I forgot where I was going with that. With the Ukrainians down in that area that speak that way, and they just speak matter of fact about the killing. It's not even an issue. Well, why are you questioning? In other words, don't question us. It's sorry, we have to do it. Well, you think Ukrainians are alone in that? You're not. You're not right. The Russians think that way too, to some extent. And as do many harsh. They're harsh people in America too. Don't screw with me. But I don't believe we're accepting money to kill people, like was going on in Russia. The girl who went to Monaco or wherever she went, I think it was Monaco, and killed that oligarch, blew him up, just put a bomb in another country. She got $200,000, and then she came back. Somebody paid $50,000 to have her killed. That's it. That's how how Ukrainians think. Okay, they don't screw around with each other, because they know that ultimately, if you do, some asshole is going to kill you. Some asshole is going to pay somebody else to kill you, and then they don't think twice about it. They go, well, you pissed him off. Did you know that in Russia, the penalty for murder is less than the penalty for drugs? For murder, you go 7 years, and Ukraine too, by the way. And but if you're convicted of drug use, that's of drug distribution, stuff like that, you can go in for 20 to 30 years. But the typical for a murder is hey, the guy was upset. When he killed somebody, it's like, holy crap, really? You stole that man's life. Why don't they steal yours? They don't believe in death penalty, and it's there's plenty to talk about on that side. And I'm going too far from astray from where I intended to go. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a riff for you, something I like to listen to, and I'm going to give you this. This is Vivo, and Mimify. It's a cool song. Let's see. Hopefully you will enjoy. I did.
I know you're gone, I know it's true. I'm missing you forever. No matter how time flies, you're the tear I never cried, the truth behind my eyes. I'm missing you forever, like the moon misses the sun. Some stories never really end, even when they're done. I read the letters that we wrote. Every word still gives me hope. Though I know there's no return, my heart still has to learn. The seasons changed 1,000 times, but you still live inside my mind. Every sunrise, every rain brings your name again. Maybe one day I'll smile again without pretending now and then. But some love stay beneath the skin long after they have been. I'm missing you forever, but I won't ask you to stay. I'll carry all the love we had as I find another way. I'm missing you forever, yet I'll keep moving through. Because a part of me will always be in love with you. Forever gone, forever true, forever missing you.
I like that. Good stuff. Okay, let's see. I was successful in what I was trying to do here. And I wanted to, because this is why I watch it, okay? Americans, we never get we don't get the other side of the news. We don't get the other side of the commentary. We don't get anything because nobody speaks a different language. You know, in most countries, they speak different languages. So like you go somewhere, hell, a lot of people speak English. I want to practice my English with you because, but I want to practice my Russian with them. It's I wish I spoke more languages. My wife speaks 5 of them, and she's, it's awesome to have her in Turkey, and she speaks Arabic. Now, Arabic is, she can get by with all of the basics, and everybody understands her, and they love the fact that she does it. But Turkish, she's fluent. And all those, like she speaks Tatar, and so Tatar means she can speak some of the Bashkiri languages over there. There's so many of them, it's crazy. So in order to live, they have to learn other languages. And in America, we're going to speak English. It's like, get rid of that foreign stuff. We don't want to hear it. Anyway, so I like to share some of the construction. And so I watched Solovyov. Now, this is actually pre-Wildberries, too. So Solovyov is definitely throttled on YouTube, so it's hard to find the video. I used to be able to watch it on Smotrim with a VPN all the time, but now it's no longer there. They only do the weekly show, and so it's a bit of a pain in the rear end. But it's hard to get. But I'm telling you, people listen to this. The older generation, for sure, are Solovyovan. They watch the Solovyov, and so this is in the format. I've told you before, I love the format. I'm going to share with you the opening of this show. that where he was talking about this, and this was mainly on the death that I was talking about of that Ukrainian lady before, and this is the opener of his show, and I'm gonna share it with you. Vladimir Solovyov. Something caught my attention, and the translations are always kind of iffy, but I got the service that I use. I told it I wanted the speech to flow, which is, so it's not an exact word for word translation, but it's extremely hard to do that with a technical text anyway. And but all of the main functions and things go. So this is a very accurate translation anyway, because I took time to read it whilst I put that beautiful song in your ears. So he said, something caught my attention today, an extraordinary mantra by Marta Kos, one of the European commissioners. It is truly a mantra. I want you to hear it, and then we'll carefully take it apart with our friends. And he's got the 6 guys standing around ready to, the political logs. And here's what she said. And she did say this. I listened to it. This is not simply a war over territory. This is a war over Ukraine's right to determine its own future as a sovereign state, a state that chose democracy, Europe, and the path toward membership in the European Union. It is precisely this choice that Moscow refuses to accept. That's what she said on the floor of the EU. And Solovyov says, this is why I like watching him. He goes, every word of that is a lie. And a lie, you can say a lie is a loge. That's a bad word. But he called it vranyo. And vranyo is crap, is rubbish. It's a far more harsh word than just a loge, a lie. And so sometimes you definitely miss the context in translation, and that's why I like listening to the guy. He goes, every word of it is crap. That would be the equivalent, right? And first, and he explains it, and he's right, by the way. He goes, first, Moscow is profoundly indifferent to whether Ukraine joins the European Union, and that's true. Putin has said it repeatedly. You want to join the EU? Great. You're not joining NATO, and no weapons will be over there. We don't give a crap if you join the EU. He's never had any problem with that. Other people have, but Putin's been pretty straightforward on that. We have said repeatedly that we have no objection to Ukraine entering the European Union. This is Solovyov again. In fact, I personally insist that Ukraine should be admitted to the European Union immediately. Our issue concerns NATO, and NATO alone. Ukraine's entry into NATO is unacceptable to us. Second, this conflict was never fundamentally about territory. It was always about the will of the people living on historically Russian land. It's absolutely true. Okay, we've been lied to over here forever. Russians want to take over the world. Grab your nuclear weapons and get in a bunker. He said so. Marta Kos is lying about that as well. And they've been lying about it in the West for the entire period of the war and longer, all the way back to 2014. And she apparently does not understand what kind of Ukraine she is describing. What relationship do freedom and democracy have in contemporary Ukraine? None whatsoever. And I agree with him completely there, because there is none. There's no democracy and there's no freedom. Not in Ukraine. No way. You get killed for money over there. Everybody's corrupt. It's all about sucking up to the proper power, and that power channel is now funded by the West, wholly. And that's where the money's coming from, so you better talk to the people who get the Western money, period. He said, today during the NATO gathering, this is actually the one from when they had the weekend, this is the last week's show. So today, during the NATO gathering, Zelensky appeared before a Congress of weapon manufacturers. He stood at a podium marked with NATO symbols and delivered his speech. This illegitimate terrorist, this scoundrel, this degenerate, began loudly talking about how many Russians had been killed. And he really did. He was talking about, we killed a bunch of them, and we're bombing the crap out of them. And his only positive was that they were bombing, and droning Russia. That's it. They're not winning the war. They're losing. But, and so Solovyov continues. I have a proposal. Ukraine is refusing to take back the body of its soldiers at Konstantinovka. I shared that story with you last week. Let us decide which NATO country embassy in Moscow should receive the bodies. If those countries openly stand behind Ukraine, boast about Russian losses, and continue supplying Ukraine with weapons, then they are participants in the conflict. Now, that particular exchange, Russia had some 7,000 or something bodies from Konstantinovka that they wanted to give back to Ukraine, and Ukraine had 51 or 39, something like that, way under 100 that they were going to return to Russia. And then they refused the bodies. Ukraine always refuses the bodies because as soon as they take the bodies, they have to acknowledge the deaths of the people that they're returning, and it costs them $300,000 by one of the estimates that I read, $300,000 per, and that's in dollars, by the way, for a death payment to the family, and they don't want to pay it. And they're not paying it. And if they leave the bodies in Russia, then they don't have to pay it. So these are real issues, right? And if these countries, I already read that. Macron himself has said that Europe is a party to the conflict. The Germans say they will not allow Ukraine to be defeated. Yet Ukraine doesn't even collect the bodies of the soldiers that the European Union sent to their deaths. Bring in the journalists, put the transfer on camera. Let everyone see the reality behind the Green Goblin, behind the Z-Monster's assertion that Ukraine isn't losing. If Ukraine does not want to collect its dead, then let the European Union collect them. The European Union is in practice fighting Russia through NATO anyway. If the European Union still maintains a representation in Moscow, if it has not yet been expelled, then perhaps the bodies should be delivered there. Invite the Ukrainian families as well. Let them identify their relatives, recover their remains, and bury them in a Christian manner. Is that harsh? Was it not harsh when they killed our women and children? Was it not harsh when Ukrainian terrorists hunted them and were awarded points for killing them? He's talking about mirotvorets. So there are several questions that must be asked after Zelensky's performance and after the latest attack on our territory. What was the name of the place that exploded during the night? Vishnevoye. I therefore have three questions for Zelensky. Konstantinovka, Vishnevoye, and Monaco. Konstantinovka has been taken. Vishnevoye demonstrated clearly what Russia is capable of doing and showed that underground installations will not protect the Ukrainians. Let Zelensky tell us how many civilians were killed in Vishnevoye because Ukrainian arsenals and military production had been placed in a residential neighborhood. And then there is Monaco. That is a question for the Europeans. Did they fail to notice that a political assassination occurred on the territory of Monaco? Why have Ukrainian ambassadors not been expelled from France? Everybody knows this, by the way. Why have sanctions not been introduced? Everybody knows it was a hit, and everybody knows the details about the hit, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. Oh, well, that's, it's Ukrainian, right? It's international freaking, where's everybody? How come nobody's bitching? I mean, this is legitimate points, right? And he says, why have Ukrainian ambassadors not been expelled from France? Why have sanctions not been introduced? There was an attempted political assassination of a citizen of the European Union in Monaco. The man who was targeted, businessman Yermolayev, is not merely Ukrainian. He's a citizen of Cyprus, and Cyprus has not revoked his citizenship. Therefore, the European Union has demonstrated that it will not protect even its own citizens. Now we are watching clumsy attempts to cover the tracks of this event. Near Kyiv, authorities found the body of a woman named Berezovskaya, and she was suspected of participating in the attempted assassination of Yermolayev in Monaco. She was killed for a small amount of money Practically nothing. According to reports being circulated, approximately 200,000 euro had been allocated for the whole operation. Around 150,000 was taken by the organizers or principal operatives. Only about 8,000 of it reached Berezovskaya, along with approximately 5,000 more euros for travel. The remainder was taken by two men involved in the operation. One was an active employee of the Ukrainian military intelligence. The other was a law enforcement officer, in whose basement investigators discovered a torture room. Berezovskaya was killed with a shot to the back of the head. We know how she crossed the border. It is obvious that this could not have happened without direct assistance from state structures, and now those tracks are being erased. I am surprised that the other two men haven't been killed yet. Perhaps they are still needed to provide testimony to redirect suspicion away from the highest levels of the Ukrainian authority. This is not merely a dispute among small-time criminals. It was very revealing. There was an assassination of Andrei Portnoy in Spain connected to Ukraine. There was neither the first nor the last assassination of politically inconvenient persons carried out by Ukrainian security structures on European territory. You remember me telling you about the first ship that the Ukrainians blew up was in the Mediterranean? They blew up a cargo ship in the Mediterranean, I think oil ship, whatever. They blew it up. Nobody said a word. And it's traveling through the Mediterranean, for God's sake. Nobody said anything. It's okay because Ukrainian, and that was the very first one. And you know what that meant? That meant that shipping of and the bombing of shipping of container ships of that's a different word in Russian. It's losing of the large cargo ships. Those are all fair game now, worldwide. You can just go out and kill them, and all you got to do is, sanctions. Sanctions. I put sanctions out, and these assholes didn't follow them. Nonsense. It's like that's international law for you. No wonder Lloyd's, and neither will the Chinese. Nobody'll insure them anymore. And, in order to get to the port, well, we'll get to that. That's another thing for another story. But his point, Solovyov is right. I went on my own personal rant. I'm going to go back to his now. The European Union is silent. And I say this directly to the European law enforcement agencies and European politicians. This is Solovyov. You are incapable of protecting European citizens even during the initial stage of the penetration of Ukrainian organized crime into your territory. And this is the point for you Americans, because if they show up, they're already here, by the way. They're everywhere. Nobody's safe. You cannot yet imagine the bloodshed that will begin in Europe. And incidentally, a hint of what awaits Europe has already been delivered by Budanov. He decided to put Poland in its place. Poland, the country that for a long period has done more than anyone else for Ukraine. The Poles believe naively that the Ukrainians can be trusted. Well, let us listen in. And here's the Polish interviewer. The Polish interviewer says he's interviewing a Ukrainian official. Interviewer says, among our friends and partners, there is one country that is particularly important, and that country is Poland. You yourself have said, perhaps about a week ago, that unless further escalation is stopped, the peak of the crisis may still lie ahead. And the Ukrainian guy says, the peak is certainly still ahead. There's no great mystery there. A little more than a week remains before the anniversary of the Volhynia tragedy. And that's the Polish, that's where all the Poles were killed, hundreds of thousands of them. According to the information available to me, the Polish side is preparing what I would describe as further immature steps of escalation. Therefore, all of this is clearly continuing of the Volhynia tragedy. And the interviewer goes, how seriously do you regard the situation in practical and pragmatic terms? I'm not asking about symbolic gestures. The removal of the reward. Remember, they took the award away from Zelensky, the Eagle Award, the renaming of something or another historical declaration. I'm talking about the consequence clusters, military assistance, and broader cooperation. And here's the Ukrainian guy says, I used the term immaturity, and that's exactly how I see it. Let me repeat, because the Poles had given him, they said, look, you need to quit doing this and naming your units after Nazi units that destroyed the Poles, Ukrainian Nazis that destroyed the Poles in Volhynia. And they're going, screw you. They're honoring Nazism right here in Poles. And this is the point. Listen to this. Let me repeat, he said, Ukraine will not accept ultimatums from anyone in the world. The last country that attempted to present us with an ultimatum was the Russian Federation. No offense to Poland, but Russia is somewhat more powerful than Poland, and even Russia's ultimatum was not accepted by us. Yes, it has been difficult. Yes, the situation is bad, and a great deal of blood has been shed, but we still do not accept an ultimatum. So why does anyone imagine we would ever accept a different ultimatum from anybody else? No one should speak to Ukraine in the language of ultimatums. That's the Ukrainian thought process for the majority. I mean, a lot. And if they want to be Nazis, by God, you ain't going to stop them. If they want to be white supremacists, you ain't going to stop them. And if they think you need to be killed because you disagree with them, you're not going to stop them. And they don't care about the consequences. The money, we got the money, they'll disappear, and they are harsh and brutal. Okay, and I hate to, and I don't generalize. There's some beautiful people as well, but don't think that just because they're, waving a Ukrainian flag that they're necessarily the good guy. Okay, and that is the problem. And Solovyov's reaction to this was, he said, there you have it, Poles. Wipe yourselves with that, is what he said. Wipe yourselves with all the assistance you give them. You're raising not only your former executioners, but your future executioners as well. Is that clear? Okay, let them swallow everything they have spent all these years cultivating Ukraine. They built this, they encouraged it, they excused it, they armed it, and now they are discovering that Ukraine does not regard Poland as a benefactor whose concerns should be respected. Ukraine regards Poland as a weak state that has no right to issue demands. The Ukrainian message is simple. We did not obey Russia, and Russia is more powerful than you, so why would we obey Poland? That is the gratitude that Poland receives. That is the result of spending and nurturing the Ukrainian regime. And then he said he wanted to say a few words about Berezovskaya. That's the girl who killed the guy, or tried to kill the guy in Monaco, tried to put a bomb out there. When she disappeared and could not be found, I had no doubt that she was already dead. She was. That was the logical conclusion, considering the publicity surrounding the crime that occurred in Monaco. But what kind of idiot would kill her in Ukraine and then allow her body to be discovered? What kind of stupidity is that? It shows they have completely lost their minds because they have enjoyed impunity for so long. The Kyiv regime consists... Where'd I go here? The Kyiv regime consists of scoundrels and criminals. That is obvious. Well, it's true, too. But they are not ordinarily stupid. They understand their position in the geopolitical structure perfectly well. They understand that they are playing a central role in the West's confrontation with Russia. For that reason, they believe quite rationally from their point of view that they will never be punished for anything they do. And I agree with that assessment completely. The woman crossed the border quickly. She was given assistance and passage. She was not forcibly transported out of Europe. She drove herself back to Ukraine. But once information concerning her identity began appearing publicly and photographs of her and information concerning her connection surfaced online, everything became clear, and, she knew she was going to be dead. At that point, she probably panicked and tried to save herself. But the two men connected to the operation also began panicking because they understand that the trail will lead to them also. But they didn't act independently. Somebody gave them 200 euro or 200,000 euro. This was not some spontaneous criminal improvisation. This is crime at the highest level, by the way. Someone at a significant level authorized the operation. Zelensky once again demonstrated that the Ukrainian state functions like an organized criminal group. And that's true, friends and neighbors. There is one more possibility. Perhaps the Americans, embedded within the Ukrainian security structure, are now attempting to restrain the regime because it has become too reckless. I think that's what's going on with Syrskyi right now, because they got rid of that guy Fyodorov last week. I mean, there's all kinds of inner drama going on in Ukraine. And the reason I'm sharing Solovyov, I don't usually share Solovyov with you in so much detail, but I wanted to put this out there because he's freaking right. Just because he gets throttled everywhere and they don't want to put his information out, they'll throttle me for putting this out. I won't be, you can't have an opinion like mine and have it broadcast anywhere suitable to get a large. They're all throttling it. They don't want to hear the truth, period. And that's the way it is. And you think America's different than anywhere else? It is not. It's throttled, it's controlled, and that's that. And this is where we are. Okay, so let's see. Perhaps the regime crossed even the red lines tolerated by the European Union by killing this guy in Monaco, or trying to. The Monaco operation communicated the message that we do not care where you are. There is no safe territory. And they have behaved in this way, he's talking about Ukrainians, because they believe their current position protects them. They truly believe that. And we can do anything. Somebody's at war with us, so therefore we can kill anybody connected to it. We can blow up Wildberries plants connected. Oh, Jesus, somebody mailed a drone, what do you call it? Tech board, whatever the board is, it goes circuit board. They said that somebody mailed a circuit board by Amazon, so therefore we got to blow up Amazon. That'd be the equivalent of what they did to Wildberries. Oh, geez, maybe they send these electronic components, and those electronic components are going to people who manufacture drones in their houses, and what a bunch of crap. And so you blow up the whole logistics. So Russia's been doing the same. I've been watching these videos, and it's friggin' frightening. They are taking out train stations. They are taking out shipping yards in those huge cranes. You ain't just putting a crane back in the ground. I mean, they are destroyed. They are taking these places to rubble, and Kyiv is next. And I'm telling you, it's not good over there. Anyway, let's get back to Solovyov, because there's only a little bit more I want to say with him, but I want to finish on his thought process of the Monaco attempts. He said, I'm going to repeat this for you. The Monaco operation communicated the message: we do not care where you are. There is no safe territory. Basically, they're going to kill you anyway. And they have behaved in this way because they believe their current position protects them. They believe the West, us, we need this struggle against Russia and will therefore forgive anything. Now, that's telling, because I think that's true too. They let these assholes get away with anything they want because they're fighting Russia. You want to blow up a school in, I forget the name of the town, Starobelsk, I can't remember, but you want to blow up a young girl's school? Nobody will question you for that. That's no big deal. And you're forgiven. Bless you. Continue bombing. Keep it up. And everything is civilian. It's crazy. They're not even attacked. At least when they attack. Remember when they attacked those planes before and they had that drone thing? That was kind of a pretty good military operation, successful, right? And but it was at least a military-related targets. Now they're blowing up civilians. They're attacking school buses with drones and laughing about it, okay? At the moment, everyone's attention is focused on the NATO summit. Everyone will flatter Trump, manipulate Trump, or extract something from Trump, and Trump will attempt to manipulate all of them. He is a creative and entertaining character. Every day can produce the same story, but this is a significant moment. We will be approaching accumulation, and after this summit, events may finally begin moving toward a result. Situation cannot continue indefinitely in its present suspended form. And that's absolutely true. The infrastructure of Ukraine is disappearing. There's nothing. They trains, gas stations, all down any main road in between any of the main cities. They can't get between the major cities without carrying their own, significant amount of backup oil, because you can't even necessarily get it when you get to the new place. They've been systematically taking out hundreds of gas stations, and certainly along the main roads. So let's see. Let's go to the British and Sevastopol, and a report from Russian intelligence service, hasn't been paid that much attention to either. It says the British were behind the strike on the museum in Sevastopol. Remember me telling you about that? This museum, this shipping museum that's been around 400 years of Russian shipping in Sevastopol, and they blew up the friggin' museum. Why would you do that? I mean, you're attacking. It's like attacking a church. I mean, what the hell? What are you doing? But they're doing it, and we've discussed this before. I did not understand why this report suggested the Ukrainians didn't know about this target. They did know. Of course they knew. But why would the British be involved? Because the museum wasn't a military target, but it represents something else. History, identity, humiliation. It represents reminders of defeat. And until Britain is restrained, this will continue. But we got to expand the geography. The problem is Europe as a whole. Look at what European politicians now openly permit themselves to say. They concede that Russia cannot be defeated on the battlefield. They concede the Russian economy has not collapsed. Therefore, they say their principal task is to destabilize Russian society from within. That's what they're all saying. That's what the Ukrainians have been doing. They want to control these elections that are coming up. And the only way they can do that is blow up Wildberries plants, attack concerts, blow up families on the Crimean beach. This is how you say, this is the torment of civilians, is how the Ukrainians intend to get their goal. And you hear their actions, when the way they talk, they are brutal. And they don't care, You aren't giving us an ultimatum. If we want to blow up an oligarch in Monaco, we're going to. And that is true. The consequences do not matter. You ever watch those shows, and that's all we have for the Russians, the allegation. So, and one of my favorite shows of the Russian ones is Brat, Adin and Brat Dva, and Brat means brother, and I've talked about it before on this show. And Brat 2, brother 2, they come to Chicago and engage in something, and it's the Ukrainian mafia, because it's all Ukrainian mafia is all over Chicago, and everybody knows it. And they are harsh. They're very, very harsh. And they chase them through here. Even the Russians were talking about it in the 90s. The Ukrainians, and anything for money, anything for power. And if that means you got to kill some people, well, it means you got to kill some people. And that's that, And so they, but Russia, is being destabilized. And how do you destabilize it? You act like the mafia. This is exactly right. This is mafia-style tactics. The principal task is to destabilize Russia. And look what the Netherlands are saying. They call for maximum assistance to Ukraine and increased participation in the confrontation. But then, this Solovyov asking about this, he has one question. Why haven't Dutch oil refineries yet exploded? If everybody's involved in a war with Russia and the war involves blowing up oil refineries in Russia, why aren't they blowing them up elsewhere? Why is Russia restraining itself? Why? Against these civilian types. Now they're taking out Odessa, and they're doing it in Odessa in Ukraine, but they haven't crossed the borders. They're not going to other places. But it's certainly free for Ukraine to go anywhere in the country of Russia and destroy anything out there. Well, if the Russians are really fighting the entire West, why isn't it justified for the for them to do the same, to blow up shipping? I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with expansion. I don't agree with what they're doing anyway. There's always kind of been an unspoken rule. You don't attack the people. The people that it's a war. You fight the combatants. That's not Ukraine. That is not Ukraine at all. They're losing their asses on the front lines. I got to get to Syrskyi, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And it's almost finished here, where he says they're all about this destabilization. But we also have people inside of Russia who insist that destabilization, continue, whether deliberately or through stupidity. Several months ago, information appeared that Ukrainian nationalist structures using NATO money were purchasing media channels, Telegram channels, and other information platforms. There were even allegations concerning supposed pro-Russian or Z military bloggers. But the FSB, the Foreign Intelligence Service, reportedly observed and reported this activity. One matter is an invented provocation with no foundation. It's another when our own institutions are giving ammunition to the same people, and it sometimes appears deliberate. But it becomes difficult to believe that all of it is just accidental, so I will put it more harshly. A reasonable suspicion has arisen. Is there some form of agreement among oligarchs? Comprador bourgeoisie, he said something in French, which I assume is a group of bourgeoisie, whose principal objective is to force Russia into an unfavorable peace. That is a question not merely for public discussion, but for highly professional services. They should be given freedom to act. Ukraine is increasingly brazen about its efforts. Goes out, kills civilians, blows them up. Our air defenses are working as hard as possible, but the attacks continue. And he's talking about Russia, of course. Europe remains untouched, while the damage inflicted on Russia grows larger every day. At some point, this arrangement must end, and we have to identify the real source of the threat. The source of the threat is not just Ukraine. The source is Europe. Ukraine is not independently carrying out these attacks. Target selection, intelligence, guidance, and support are provided by NATO. Yes, caller, how may I help you? Oh, you got to turn your radio down.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can. Continue.
Cool. It's kind of hypocritical for you to talk about Ukraine blowing up citizens when everybody on Fox News is chanting about bridge and power plant day.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy you're not mentioning it. You're up in arms that they're fighting a war in Ukraine, but you're not concerned that your own country is doing the exact same thing.
Oh, I know we're doing the exact same thing. That's not today's topic.
It's not today. I know we're doing the same thing. I'm just not talking about it.
Well,
is what you're saying.
Well, that is what I'm saying. I'm not. I'm on your side about that.
About another country.
I agree with it.
How are you going to be belly aching about another country doing it when we're doing the exact same thing? Remember back when the program was we were saving the poor.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you, and I agree with that. My topic today is not Iran.
I'm not talking about Iran either. I'm talking about war-thirsty.
I agree with you.
Like you are. The same thing you're talking about.
I'm a war criminal? What? Oh, you mean what I'm talking about? Not that I'm a war criminal too.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, maybe I am. Who knows? I was in the military. Maybe I was a criminal. Who knows?
Yeah, you guys end up copping to a lot of stuff. Maybe I missed that part.
Maybe so. Yeah, I only did underground nuclear testing and elimination of rakety srednyi menshi dalnosti, rockets of intermediate and shorter ranges. That was my job. It was pretty fun. So I was trying to save the world way back in my youth, and I didn't engage in any crime. And it was even during the Gulf War. I never got sent there. What the hell's the use as a Russian interpreter over there? And so I didn't get any wartime, even though I was in for 1 and 2, but I got no wartime. And so,
Enough about you. Do you think that,
enough about you.
do
I haven't blown up any bridges in Iran either, so I'm doing well.
I said enough. Do you think that Ukraine is really winning? If
No, hell no.
I mean, I'm sorry. Do you think Russia is really winning? If it was supposed to be a 3-day.
That's a bunch of crap anyway. And they had them on their knees in the first week, and then gave up because of Bojo, and they retreated in there, and it was a massive push. Say what?
Explain that part.
They had them all the way up through Zaporozhye, and they had all the way. They were almost to Dnipropetrovsk, and right outside of Kyiv. And then they said, look, we don't want that. All we want is Donetsk, Lugansk, and now Zaporizhia and Kharkov, because they all filed memorandum and they had votes. And they had referendums. They had a vote. Said and they're 90% Russian anyway, and they don't want to be Ukrainian, and they're not letting them be Russian. There's serious stuff about. So Russia said, we want these 4 territories. And they actually had an agreement to go back to that in April of 2022. I can't believe I got to repeat this. You know all this stuff. You know all that, and you know that the Russians during the 6-day or whatever it was negotiation, which they were going to accept, they retreated back from all kinds of places. They pulled back during that time period. Go check it out. They did it. And they pulled back.
Check it out.
Well, do it. Go back. Go watch. There's several channels out there where you can watch in the first days of the Russian invasion, if you want to call it what the West is calling it. You can go back and look at it, that they went much, much further than where the front line is right now. And all they wanted was to stop it, and Bojo and the Biden administration encouraged them to not go. We'll keep funding you. But they were capitulating in April of 2022. In 2 months, they were capitulating. And there were documents to prove it. You can go out and check it out. And then they went. And since that time, it's been a grind. And it's a grind for territory. And the Ukrainians have lost, last estimates that I heard, were at least 1.2 million. And nobody knows the Russians, but most of the experts in that, like the Institute of War and places like that, estimate the losses are at least 1 to 5, which means Ukrainians lost 5 to every 1 of Russian. And that puts the Russians somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000-300,000, and I bet it's higher than that myself. I imagine it's got to be at least half of what the Ukrainians have lost, but that's me. But nobody gives those numbers. But the Ukrainians are losing massively.
Well, things I say says 450,000 Russians and 150,000 Ukrainians.
Well, I don't know who you. That's State Department BS from America, and you can go.
America.
Well. Check out the Institute of War. Check out that one, and there's a couple other ones. And those are British, they're European, they're whatever. No, just so you don't think they're Russian is all I'm saying. But you can the independent arms that usually study war, don't take the American side, don't take the Ukrainian side, don't take the Russian side. Go find somebody else. The reasonable people are saying that the Russians have done 6 times the damage of killing and maiming people than the Ukrainians have. I'm not for any of that, by the way, and I don't subscribe to any of those, but I know the Ukrainians are losing massively because every time there's a body exchange, they exchange many thousands by the Russians and 50 for the Ukrainians. What are they doing? Taking the bodies and churning them up if they're capturing and killing all these Russians? What are they doing? The Russians have a fucking... Oh, sorry, I shouldn't talk like that. Freezer trucks full of dead bodies. And they got freezer trucks and they're delivering them to Ukraine. And then Ukraine is refusing them because they don't want to pay the $300,000 a head to the families. because it takes away from their corrupt schemes to scalp American and Western money and for their own oligarch purposes. That's the point of today's show. So you want to talk about Iran, call me tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. You have a good day.
I do.
Okay, then I'll give you my opinion tomorrow. And there he goes. But I was on Ukraine and Russia and the mafia in Ukraine, and I still got a little bit I want to do on this topic because I want to talk about Syrskyi. And there's more mafia style stuff going on over there in this. You know what I'm going to do though? In order to close that out, I'll give you one final point. Ukraine's new generation of technology leaders speaks very openly and pays rewards for any video that shows a Russian soldier being killed. They imagine this humiliates the Russian soldier. They do not understand that what they are showing is if a soldier faced with the choice of captivity or death, they choose death. And they have documented an extreme act of courage and determination. But the Ukrainians have no compassion. Fyodorov, Budanov, Malyuk, Zelensky, Yermak, the entire structure has turned itself into a machinery of cruelty, I would say of the mafia, and go a little further. And the longer the West protects that machinery, the more convinced it becomes that it can act with no consequences. That is the lesson for Poland and the lesson for the rest of Europe. And according to Solovyov, that is the issue Russia has to finally answer. Probably the most ultimate will is this. Ukraine will not accept ultimatums from anyone in the world. The last country attempted to present us with ultimatum was Russia. No offense to Poland, but Russia is more powerful than Poland, and we didn't accept Russian ultimatums either. That's pretty brutal. For what you are saying on that topic. I got to get to Mr. Syrskyi. Where is he? And give me one moment. Here we go. As of, you know what? We're going to play another brief song. How do you think? What do you think about that? Where is it? Yeah, I wanted to share with you from one of my favorite Russian movies. Is a song about rabbits, and this is a good song, but it's in Russian, and but I enjoy it. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. He's up there dancing on a stage, and it's Pesnya pro Zaitsev. Part of a movie.
Песня про зайцев. В темно-синем лесу, где трепещут осины, где с дубов колдунов облетает листва. На поляне траву зайцы в полночь косили и при этом напевали странные слова. А нам все равно, пусть боимся мы волка и сову. Дело есть у нас в самый жуткий час. Мы волшебную косим трын-траву. А дубы-колдуны что-то шепчут в тумане. У поганых болот чьи-то тени встают. Косят зайцы траву, трын-траву на поляне. И от страха все быстрее песенку поют. А нам все равно, пусть боимся мы волка и сову. Дело есть у нас в самый жуткий час. Мы волшебную косим трын-траву. А нам все равно, твердо верим мы в древнюю молву. Храбрым станет тот, кто 3 раза в год в самый жуткий час косит трын-траву. А нам все равно, станем мы храбрей и отважней льва. Устоим хоть раз в самый жуткий час, все напасти нам будут трын-трава.
favorite movies too. And drunk guy up there, he's it's a funny show too. It's very, very funny. And he's out there singing. He's drunk and singing and moves up into the band and gives his own version of Anam Syrovno, which is a Pesnya pro Zaitsev, a song about hares, a big rabbit, not the small ones, but the big ones. And so it's a good diversion, let's call it. But here's the diversion of the mafia going on and, showing itself inside of Ukraine. So there's been all kinds of talks all weekend. So they got rid of this Fyodorov guy. And where is this Fyodorov dude? They offered for him to come back. They said, oh, no, come back. And he's like, nah, I don't think so. And so because there's all kinds of protests, probably paid for, people protesting. They do it for a living, That's what they do. And it doesn't cost much to get people to protest over there because you use dollars instead. So Zelensky's facing a deepening crisis over his military leadership on Monday after the defense minister, whom he sacked, refused to return. He turned down another offer coming back. The Ukrainian people proposed over the weekend. The Ukrainian president said over the weekend that he would bring back Mikhail Fyodorov with an expanded mandate, according to people familiar with the matter, after Fyodorov's removal sparked this uproar everywhere in Ukraine. So a senior Ukrainian official and two other people said that Fyodorov wanted only to return to the defense ministry, not anywhere else. Beyond the calls to bring back Fyodorov, Zelensky is under pressure to appoint a younger generation of military leaders to replace Oleksandr Syrskyi, who clashed with Fyodorov over how Ukraine should fight the war. See, these younger generation, they want to fight the war by blowing up Wildberries plants. Okay, that's what they want. Syrskyi wants to win on the front line, and he's not. And he just lost Konstantinovka, and now they're worried about it in many of the other places that are going on there. Leaving Syrskyi in place, and this is by, which newspaper is this? Financial Times, I forgot. Leaving Syrskyi in place now would mean not only ignoring the will of society, but also demoralize the army. Dmitry Kazinitsky, a military veteran and organizer, wrote on X, and he threatened an indefinite protest unless Syrskyi gets removed this week. The general has to go. Protests in support of Fyodorov in Kyiv began on Thursday and have grown to 16 cities. Demonstrators have expanded their demand to argue that Ukraine needs to adopt a new approach to the war, that Fyodorov's innovations, yes, let's blow up Wildberries plants, as the conflict with Russia enters the critical phase more than 4 years after it began. Zelensky spent the past 4 days in meetings with military commanders and political advisors, not Syrskyi, trying to make sure that they weren't going to sack him or go with Syrskyi. He can't have the military against him, too, is what's really going on. And if he gets rid of Syrskyi, who's popular with the generals below him, then he's got the problem that, nobody's going to follow the first one. And they're losing on the front lines. But remember, now they believe that this is a war of narratives. And if you can blow up a Wildberries plant, even if it does kill 89 civilians or whatever that number was, that, that is winning the war. That is winning. And, we can do that, and that's fine, because the new generation, they only want to play video games and be underground in a bunker using weapons that fly somewhere, and they won't risk their own bodies ever. Nor do they want to. So Russia has to find the drone facilities and bomb them and kill them, and the same thing has to go on in the other direction. But Ukraine is losing on the front. There's no doubt. So under the arrangement that was offered, Fyodorov would oversee defense technology programs and efforts to scale production of long-range weapons, which is what they want. They want long-range. They want to keep blowing up Russia from afar, allowing him to continue pushing reform outside the defense ministry and military command. He would also have worked to attract foreign investment in Ukraine's defense industry, and Fyodorov did not respond to the request for comment. president met Fyodorov for 6 hours over the weekend and has been in contact with him daily since he got rid of him on Thursday, according to people briefed on the matter. And Zelensky offered him several alternative positions to his past defense minister role, but he declined all of them. He has a lot of leverage right now, said a person familiar with the discussions between Fyodorov and Zelensky. He wants one thing: to be restored as the Minister of Defense, and he knows most of society is on his side. The situation has compounded the related dilemma facing Zelensky over the future of Syrskyi. Changing the leadership risks disrupting the entire institution central to Ukraine's defense amid Russia's escalating airstrikes. They're destroying Ukraine inside. But resisting calls for change will further alienate the public, with a long record of forcing its political leadership to reverse course through mass mobilization. Moreover, Syrskyi has been a close ally of Zelensky and has at times closely coordinated military plans according to the desire of the president. Kursk region, remember that farce? That was crap. We need to go up and take over the Kursk power plant because they took over Zaporizhia. That was idiocy. And they lost an estimated 75,000 soldiers during that stupidity. And the people with knowledge of the relationship say that he and Zelensky are pretty close. So it's important to assess further strategy and how to force Russia to end the war with a worthy peace for Ukraine and guaranteed security, said Zelensky on Sunday, suggesting a change in the top may be imminent. Okay. Among militaries we met over the weekend, Mikhailo Drapatye, commander of the Joint Forces of Ukraine, Vladimir Horbatyuk, deputy chief of staff, and Oleg Apostol, commander of the assault air forces. All are among contenders to take over the job of commander-in-chief from Syrskyi. And several senior Ukrainian officials and people close said there appeared to be growing momentum behind promoting younger officers whose careers were shaped by Russia's war rather than Soviet traditions. Supporters argue that these commanders are now attuned to new realities reshaping the war, including the expansion, rapid, of drone warfare, decentralized decision-making, and the need for fast adaptations at the front. Western partners urged the president to settle this matter quickly. We are your financier, and we need stability, said a Western supporter of Kyiv. We need people to know and trust we can work with Ukraine. And you can't, because the mafia runs Ukraine. And you can't trust these a-holes. You can't do it. And so there you have it. Let's see. And I think that's I think it's it's very interesting to follow all the drama going on over there, but nobody knows much about it. So, but as of this morning, Oleksandr Syrskyi has not been dismissed as commander-in-chief. There's no presidential decree or official Ukrainian announcement that removes him, and the Ukrainian General Staff denies that immediate dismissal has been decided, but the pressure is very serious and enough that several reports have described him, including that one I just shared with you the most of from the Financial Times. And so the immediate crisis wasn't a battlefield defeat, but Zelensky's dismissal of Fyodorov after a deep conflict between Fyodorov and Syrskyi, or his general staff. Fyodorov has become identified with drone warfare, fast weapon procurement. He's in bed with all the oligarchs and with all the Western money train. And so Ukraine, through Zelensky and the former people who are collecting all this wealth to themselves, don't want this young kid coming in and taking it. And that's what's really going on, is this young kid has made great strides with Western contacts in his own right. That's why he has so much power and can tell him, I just want my defense minister spot back. You reappoint me or we'll continue these protests for weeks. Greater autonomy for field commanders is what they want. Technology-driven military reform, reducing the dependence on assault infantry, and breaking what supporters call Soviet-style bureaucracy. Mafia. Syrskyi and traditional military reportedly resisted portions of that program that the defense minister wanted, argued that drones cannot replace infantry, artillery, discipline command, and conventional force structure. You can't get rid of the conventional force structure and fight only a drone and missile war. But apparently, that's the way the world is going. You know, that's all we're doing. What did he say on the phone earlier? Bridge and something day that they're all talking about on Fox News. Zelensky ultimately chose Syrskyi over Fyodorov because of the loyalty of Syrskyi to Zelensky. So he acknowledged that the two sides had failed to achieve unity, and he had to choose between them. And there are public protests not only for Fyodorov, but against Syrskyi, and it's all young people. Fyodorov's removal has several demonstrations in Kyiv and now numerous other Ukrainian cities. They all say Syrskyi out. Syrskyi out, demanded Fyodorov's reinstatement. They accused Syrskyi of obstructing military modernization, accused the general staff of promoting loyalty over competence, and blamed centralized command practice for unnecessary casualties. Reports describe thousands of protesters participating over several days, which is an unusual public challenge to Zelensky during wartime. And some protesters have established a deadline for Fyodorov's return, and they threaten expanded demonstration. And so this is more than just a personal dispute. It's a test of whether wartime Ukraine can tolerate a public revolt against military commander who is personally protected by Zelensky. Syrskyi denies that he regarded his relationship with Fyodorov as a conflict. He described disagreements as normal institutional differences during a major war and said he was surprised to learn the relationship was being portrayed as a feud. That response is designed to distance him from Fyodorov's dismissal, prevent himself as a professional soldier rather than a politician, avoid directly attacking Fyodorov, whose popularity exceeds his, that's for sure, and keep Zelensky from being forced into another humiliation and having to come up with a reversal narrative. His difficulty is that Fyodorov supporters do not regard this as only a misunderstanding. They regard it as a contest between young, technology-driven models and older command culture. They want to go with the young one. So why Syrskyi is vulnerable? Because his battlefield reputation has been associated with costly defensive battles. He lost Bakhmut. He centralized command, micromanagement, high personnel losses, continued reliance on infantry despite Ukraine's shortage in manpower. The nickname for him is of his critics is sometimes General 200, which reflects accusations that he tolerates excessive loss, and it explains the dispute over drone warfare and its why it's so emotionally driven, because they want to use only drones. They don't want people dying. They want a drone warfare. That's it. We fly drones into Russia. Russia flies drones into us. That's the war, you know. And the manpower crisis is another Syrskyi vulnerability. Only got a couple of minutes left, so I'll talk about that. And the fact that Fyodorov is a pretty big potential political rival. Now, who would be the possible replacements? Nobody really knows, but the name getting the most attention is Mikhailo Drapati, the younger and comparatively respected Ukrainian commander, whose appeal would be that he represents generational change, preserve professional military leadership, reconcile portions of Fyodorov's reform agenda with the conventional operations of Syrskyi. He could reduce political pressure without immediately returning Fyodorov to the defense ministry, and no replacement has been confirmed, and Zelensky's going to attempt another compromise rather than remove Syrskyi immediately. But Fyodorov rejects the compromise. So the strategic argument, there are two models. Syrskyi's model, which is infantry-driven, artillery, and organized formation. Drones supplement rather than replace conventional forces, and central command is necessary. Fyodorov says Ukraine doesn't possess Russia's manpower or industry. Ukraine has to fight asymmetrically, Drones should go first. Command should be decentralized. And rapid private sector innovations matter more than military bureaucracy. So long-range strikes is what he's all for inside of Russia that can impose significant costs on Russia without Ukrainian troop losses. So they're more into a long-term. They want to drag on this warfare of blowing up civilians inside of Russia and blowing up Wildberries factories. Is the younger generation, and you know, there's some naturally there'd be a lot of support for that because you can do it without dying, and they don't want to go to the front and die. They don't want to fight. They want to play video games. These are video games, and they can do it. Russians, we can play video games too. They say, right? Everybody can sit around and play video games, but at some point you got to take the territory, and how are you going to do it without an infantry, without any tanks? That's the argument. So this is why the Wildberries attack matters, because Fyodorov supporters want an aggressive drone technology war. Syrskyi is accused of obstructing that. Fyodorov has been dismissed. The protests demand that Syrskyi get removed and Fyodorov gets put back. Ukraine conducts